Cool. All right. So, lesson 5, the road to revolution. What are we looking at here? Join or die. What is this? Propaganda. Very good. Propaganda. You know where we get propaganda from? To propagate? From the Roman Catholic Church during the time of the battling the Moors and battling the Inquisition. That's where the propagate to promote the Roman Catholicism and the spread of the Catholic Church and Christianity. So this is our earliest piece of American propaganda, and our oldest piece of, but our oldest American political cartoon done by Benjamin Franklin during the era of the French and Indian War. Some of this is review, so just kind of hang in there. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to jump in. Let me know if you've got anything. So, New France, Canada, obviously valuable resource from the St. Lawrence Seaway through the Great Lakes to the Mississippi River Valley and into the Ohio River Valley, as far west as the Rocky Mountains and far south as New Orleans and the Gulf of Mexico. But do keep in mind the capital of New France was the trade post city of Quebec along the St. Lawrence. Anybody visit Quebec in here?
I've been up there.
Nice. That's awesome. Was it a good time?
Yeah.
Cool. Established that trading post. Samuel de Champlain. Don't forget about him. He showed up in a couple of lessons now. He's the father of New France. Remember, he explored and settled that area. It had already been explored by Cartier prior to him setting up the trading post. So, most of the trappers and traders are going to come through Quebec. You don't have a lot of family units that are coming in. Most of the family units would have been like religious groups like the Acadians, which was a Catholic group that came in. But a lot of these folks are here to make money. The trappers and traders, again, I don't know how great my French pronunciation here is, but coureurs du bois. Okay, good. All right, so the runners of the woods, right? These are the trappers, traders. And we still have a lot of French names from the St. Lawrence all the way to the Mississippi and beyond that have stayed with us. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Red Sticks, Terre Haute, the Highlands, Terre Haute, Indiana, Des Moines, Iowa, some monks, the Grand Tetons in Wyoming and Idaho, large or big breasts. Has anybody ever been out west, gone through the Tetons before? It'll change your life. Go check out Yellowstone. This is Yellowstone. It's unreal. Go do it. Tetons are awesome. They go along the Snake River. Very cool. So, French voyagers are going to recruit natives for trapping, trading, hunting. But they're also going to recruit natives to as guides and scouts. So this is kind of where we see like natives serving as kind of like mercenaries. So they'll be like hired, not just hunters, but also hired guns. Most of these folks want to convert natives to Catholicism. So we've got a couple of groups that are going to try to convert the Jesuits. This is a sect of Catholic missionaries that come over to New France. We also learned about, remember, Lafayette and Joliet that explored and served a mission purpose. And then you also have Acadians, who are another group of Catholics that come in as well. Again, a lot of missionaries that come in, and most of those being Jesuits and Acadians. So we start seeing French settlement throughout the St. Lawrence. Champlain is going to explore all the way out into the Great Lakes, and then more explorers and trappers are going to make their way out there. Another guy that I wanted to point out that we didn't talk about was, we've discussed him, but we didn't talk about him at length, was Antoine Cadillac. Cadillac's going to go out, and he is going to settle the Straits of Detroit, and that's where the Ottawa tribe were located. He wants to Christianize them, but why would Detroit be a really great spot for New France, a great outpost? For what reasons? Got a lot of what in and around Detroit? Yes, very good. You got a lot. You've got access to lakes. You got a lot access to waterways. Detroit sits on the Great Lakes. You've got all kinds of available resources, whether it be lumber or fur trade. Remember Robert de La Salle? Remember the Cavalier de La Salle? He is going to be hired by Louis XIV, and he will be the first to make the entire way down the Mississippi. He'll claim all of the land west of the Mississippi in honor of King Louis XIV, the Sun King. That's why it's known as Louisiana, right? LaSalle tries to go on another mission, but remember he ends up in Matagorda Bay, thinks he's in the Gulf of Mexico, winds up on the Trinity, his crew mutinies, they overthrow him, kill him, and then they head out. Do keep in mind that the Illinois country, that is also going to be settled by the French. We talked about Cahokia. Remember that Native American location in St. Louis, or near St. Louis? That becomes a big trading post. And then you'll start to see, like on this map, I mean, check out from, the St. Lawrence Seaway. You see the St. Lawrence Seaway? We've got settlements and forts throughout Frontenac, Detroit, St. Louis, Baton Rouge, New Orleans. We'll see New Orleans change hands several times. So everything in light blue is French. Everything here in like reddish, pinkish is British. Orange, Spanish. And then this purple area, this is like in dispute between France and England. Not to mention this particular territory as well. Here, these are going to be this particular area here and this particular area here. That is up for debate not only between the British and the French, but the British and the Spanish. And do keep in mind that when the French and the Spanish ally against one or ally together, that creates another enemy for the British as well. There's a coureur du bois, runner of the woods, a trapper wearing buckskin, moccasins, rifled musket. We'll talk more about rifled muskets moving forward. The War of Jenkins' Ear. Has anyone ever heard of this tiny little naval war? Perfect. We're all learning something new today. All right. Jenkins was a British merchant ship captain, but he was also a smuggler, which means he was a little bit of a what? I don't know. A little bit of a liar. What do we call a little bit of a liar on the open seas? Not a pirate, but a privateer, right? He's a bit of a privateer. And there's a dispute, obviously, with the Spanish. He decides that he's going to come aboard a Spanish ship, which he is basically dealing with one of his own kind, another merchant smuggler. And by boarding a ship, what does that already tell us? What's going to be in question here if this guy's boarding another man's ship? Okay? This might be an issue of honor, right? And in this scenario, how do these gentlemen deal with honor? Yes, all right? Typically, it deals with some bloodshed, right? So he not only boards the ship, but some words are exchanged, and in retaliation, the Spanish ship captain chops off his ear. Jenkins collects his ear, presents it to Parliament, and Parliament, this little tiny event over this severed ear turns into a naval war that's fought, and it's not a major naval war. It's like skirmishes between the British and the Spanish at sea. But we already know all these British and Spanish treaties that have been put into place, so it seems sort of silly to get involved over a severed ear between two privateer smugglers, but that's what went down, and this really lasts until about 1748. What's more important than the severed ear itself and the actual the small naval engagements off the coast of Florida down into the Caribbean, is the larger war that England and Spain get sucked into as a result of it, which is the War of Austrian Succession, also known in the colonies as King George's War. So we're like dealing with that House of Hanover, George I, II, III, like going into the colonial period. So France is going to ally with Spain. England will, in retaliation, capture the French fort at Louisbourg, and will also capture Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia. Cooler heads prevail. There is a peace treaty, which I showed you the map of the disputed land a second ago that was shaded in purple. And really, the reason that the English are going to give the fort back to the French is to prevent a larger scale war. But that war is going to be inevitable, right? One group of people that were pretty upset about this were the American colonists, notably merchants and fishermen in New England. Are you all familiar with the Grand Bank? It's an incredible fishing area. It's located basically between Nova Scotia and Cape Cod. So that had economic implications by the British, for the British handing that back over. All right, little help from my French students here. The Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, which
Is that French? I know some
it's definitely French. It means water.
It's like an
Aix-la-Chapelle. So I said Aix-la-Chapelle. Allah. Basically, the water of Chapelle is what this translates to. I do appreciate everyone's help. Thank you. I apologize for my poor French. I was a Spanish student in high school and in college. I know. I have been thinking about picking up another language along the way. But I need to get back to my Spanish too. I know. I need to get back to it. I need to. No, it's a problem. I need to get back into it. All right, we'll talk about that later. You guys can help me with that. All right, so this is the event of the War of Jenkins' Ear. This is the presentation of Jenkins' Ear to Parliament on the top right. And this is on my bucket list. I would love to go visit Louisbourg, and I would love to go visit, I want to go check out the, Gulf of St. Lawrence and the St. Lawrence Seaway. Has anybody spent any time up there? I really want to check that out. I don't know about you guys, but great history, great fishing. That's right up my alley. So let's talk a little bit about how the French and Indian War begins in America. All right. As you all already know, the French have laid claim to areas along the Ohio River. And word has reached the royal governor of Virginia, that the French have built a fortified location throughout the Allegheny Mountains in and around present-day Pittsburgh. And it's not just Pittsburgh. It's basically a chain of forts that go along the mountain range all the way to the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So you're basically looking at from the Allegheny Mountains all the way up to the border of basically where Canada, Pennsylvania, and New York presently meet. Well, this is a problem because this particular area of land, if you could bring it into your brain, and I know you all can because you're all brilliant, you can think about what the boundaries of the state of Pennsylvania look like, right, in your head. Cut the state of Pennsylvania in half. That's the colonial boundary of Pennsylvania. It goes to about Harrisburg, okay? So that's pretty much Pennsylvania. So everything west of the Susquehanna River Valley was either surveyed out to be owned by Virginia or New York. It was not surveyed out to be owned and claimed by the French. So in the minds of Governor Dinwiddie, present-day Pittsburgh that's Virginia land. So he is going to commission a young colonel, George Washington, age 21, just a little bit older than you guys, to march 150 militiamen and Native American scouts out into the territory. Why George Washington? Help me out. He's a surveyor. Very good. Excellent. He knows the terrain. He's actually been out that way. What's another reason why Washington would be a good choice? Any other ideas besides his surveying experience? Does he have any military experience? A little bit, yeah. He's actually been trained. He's got some military training. So he is going to be, a pretty decent choice, but he's not the Washington that we know yet. All right, he is a young man with a opportunity. So he marches out, and it's hard going, right? I mean, it's not easy to drive to Pittsburgh, much less march there. Pittsburgh, much less march out there. And again, remember, it's not Pittsburgh yet. And it's a convergence of the Susquehanna, the Monongahela, the Allegheny Rivers, the headwaters of the Ohio. Yep. So here's the deal. About 40 miles outside of Fort Duquesne, he and his band of militiamen are going to clash with the French, and they're going to kill the French leader of this particular group of soldiers. The French will retaliate, and before the retaliation, Washington and his men will hastily build what became known as Fort Necessity. They will fight, many will die, they will be surrounded, he will surrender. All right? In his surrender terms, the French are going to let him bring his people, the scouts that lived and the militiamen that lived, they're going to allow them to march back to Virginia. So you might wonder, what's going to happen when he gets back? When he gets back to Williamsburg, he receives a hero's welcome, because he is a militiaman, not a British regular soldier. He is a militiaman that took on the French, and though he lost, fought bravely and managed to come back and tell the story. So here we have the Charles Wilson Peel that we've already taken a look at, with Washington as a militia colonel from the French and Indian War. There's Fort Necessity, but then here's what I wanted you guys to see. Look at the chain of forts established all the way up to the border where basically Pennsylvania, New York, and Canada meet along Lake Erie. All right? Have you all ever heard the term theater of war before? This is like the area in which a war occurs. This is the theater of war in which we're talking about. This area of Appalachia is what we're going to be looking at for the French and Indian War, and up into the St. Lawrence Seaway in Quebec. Quins? Yeah, of course. All right. So here we are. Can you all see why this is important? Look at these rivers. The Monongahela, the headwaters of the Ohio, the Allegheny, the Susquehanna, right? These are significantly important arteries for trade, not just the movement of goods, but also the movement of people. All right, so I've got a couple more things I want to cover, and then we'll call it. The fourth of these wars between the English and the French empires will start in America, but here's the deal. And I'm pulling a Winston Churchill here. Winston Churchill is one of the first people to categorize this as it's the First World War. And I would agree with that, because this is a war that is fought in Europe, it's fought at sea, and it's fought in America. All right? That is what the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War, was about. It was a 7 Years' War in Europe. It was a 9-year war in the colonies. Okay? So unlike the first three that started in Europe or at sea, this one starts here in America in 1754. The French and Indians are going to ally together, and as I said, it's kind of funny that the war lasted 9 years in America, but keep in mind, the reason it is the French and Indian War is because the French had more Indian allies. And the majority of their allies were either Huron, which you already know was their ally from the beginning, but why would the Algonquian as an ally be a little bit more complex? Can you guys tell me that? The Algonquian? Why would the Algonquian be a little more complex here? Jalen? What's up? I can't hear you. Some of them had previous alliances with the English. Okay? I just kind of gave away my answer there. Some of them, right? And what I mean is, the Algonquian were a tribe of people, of multiple tribes of people that stretched from the Carolinas all the way up to New England, right? They were a massive confederation of tribes. What's one Algonquian tribe we've learned about several? Iroquois is not Algonquian. Powhatan, Algonquian. Roanoke, Algonquian. Croatoan, Algonquian. Those are just southern tribes. The list goes on and on and on. It doesn't go on and on and on, but it goes for a long time on Algonquian tribes on the East Coast. So this is a large confederation of tribes for the French to fight with. All right? So who's involved? England and Prussia, France, Spain, Austria, Russia, and Native American allies. Do keep in mind, though, the English and the colonists will have some Native Americans involved as well. How does Indian come into this? More Indians sided with the French than the English, hence the name French and Indian War. In Germany, did you guys learn about Frederick the Great last year? Okay, awesome. Frederick the Great won his title, the Great, by repelling French, Austrian, and Russian armies, even though he was badly outnumbered. Kind of a cool fact. Baron von Steuben was his aide-de-camp. Do you know what an aide-de-camp is? Aide-de-camp. An aide-de-camp is like the right-hand man, okay? So, von Steuben was Frederick the Great's aide-de-camp. Has anybody ever heard of Baron von Steuben before? Okay, cool. You will be learning more about Baron von Steuben. Baron von Steuben was called to America to write the Army drill manual and to drill patriot soldiers in the American Revolution, and he becomes yes, very good, Connor. Excellent. All right. So we'll talk a bit about Steuben later. Any place in America that's called Steubenville, or named for Steuben, it is named for von Steuben. Moving right along. So many Americans want to unite. Not all. Right? Why? I'm asking a lot of questions today. Sorry. Why do they not want to unite? What's that? We'll get there. All right? We'll get there. That's funny. Amanda. Sure. Nadia. What's up?
I mean, they were pretty outnumbered.
Okay. Okay, so they feel like they're backs against the wall. I can go with that. I want you to think about the fact that all of them would have identified as being British, but most colonies kind of they had their own personal identity. So why would someone from Virginia care to ally or even care to come together and unify with somebody from Massachusetts, right? Or why would somebody from South Carolina care to work with a Quaker from Pennsylvania? You know, you follow me? It's almost like their identity of each colony was kind of like, we've got our own country. We don't need to worry about coming together. So, the guy that beats the drum, though, to bring them together is actually Ben Franklin with that piece of propaganda that we looked at, join or die, right? And it's going to come together in the Albany Congress, held in Albany, New York, 7 of the 13 colonies. This is a really big deal. Delegates are going to be sent. Ben Franklin does this famous thing. You know, he's like very witty and has all these very, symbolic quips where he takes an arrow and he says, he's like, I've got one arrow, and one arrow snaps it in half. We're not strong. And then he takes 13 arrows and he says, but 13 I can't break. We're strong, right? This is seems like very revolutionary rhetoric, but that's what he's talking about in the Albany Congress. So the Albany Plan of Union, there's some pros and cons here, okay? The pro is they actually came together. The con is the Albany Plan of Union never formulated. It never even worked out. But there's another pro. It convinces the Iroquois to actually reluctantly join sides because guess what? What do we know about the Huron and the Iroquois? They're enemies, right? So the Iroquois, though they did not, why did they not want to join up with either side in the first place? Any ideas why they would not want to get involved in this war? That's not a bad point. Okay? You guys are all bringing up really good points here, okay? Why get involved in the death toll when it might just divide the tribe, right? Hey, you know what? We'll stay out of this. You guys sort it out. But they're stuck. It's like a catch-22 for them, rock and hard place, however you want to phrase it, because it's like, okay, yeah, we can't go with these guys, or we can't go with these guys because they're our enemies, but let's say we turn our backs on these guys, they win, we might have a lot better opportunity. What the Iroquois are not ready for is the fact that this very war divides this group, the English and the colonists, and then the Iroquois, in the end, are going to have to, their greatest fear is going to come to fruition. They're going to have to choose sides, and their confederation is going to be broken apart. All right. There's Ben Franklin's join or die propaganda. Good job on that, guys. Well done. So keep in mind, this is adopted during the American Revolution, but it predates the Revolution. It is a piece of propaganda for the French and Indian War. All right, this is where we pump the brakes today. This is all I've got left for you, and then we'll pick it back up next class. The beginning of the war technically starts in 1754 with Washington marching into the in 1754. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You're cool. Yeah, you're good. So in 1754, we know about Washington marching into the backcountry. In 1755, a very skilled British general by the name of Edward Braddock takes command. He is leading regular British soldiers and a whole lot of unexperienced colonial militia with slow, heavy artillery, teams of horses and mules, Native American scouts, and what will occur is the first major battle of the war at the Battle of Great Meadows. This is outside of Pittsburgh as well. In the Battle of Great Meadows, Washington becomes larger than a hero. He becomes a man of myth, legend. This is where his legendary status, mythical folklore status begins. Native Americans thought he was a ghost after witnessing him fight in this battle. He had 2 horses shot from underneath him. Keep in mind, he was one of the best horsemen in all of colonial America. 4 bullets went through his coat. None actually hit him. Braddock was killed on the field, shot through the chest. Braddock's last words, "Who would have thought?" His military sash was given to Washington. Washington will wear that sash throughout the rest of his military career. And then Washington, pretty much for the short period, takes command. Now, I know this seems like people are like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you? Guys, he's in his early 20s, and he's a Virginia militiaman. He can't get a regular British officer position. He's not going to rise to the rank of general. In fact, if anyone should have received the rank of general following this war, that would have been a colonial militiaman, it would have been him. And you know what? If the British would have changed their policy and done that, things could have been very different in the outcome of the American Revolution. But that didn't happen. So, as a result of the death of Braddock, new British commanders would have to be put into place. The British and the colonists lost a lot of key battles following the Battle of Great Meadows, and they were near defeat in these early years of the war. The frontier of Pennsylvania and the border of the colonies and Canada, again, was the main theater of this war, from Pittsburgh to Quebec. And seriously, British defeats continue to mount, and this is a very lopsided war in the early years on the positive side for the French and in the negative column for the British. And we're going to talk about how the tide of the war changes when we get into our next class. So remember, they're trying to attack a multitude of strategic French wilderness outposts, and they're not successfully doing so because the French and their Native American allies, the Huron and the Algonquian, are using some guerrilla-style warfare tactics, which folks called Indian tactics throughout. So we have the death of Braddock on the left here. And here on the right, I wanted to show you the Peel painting again. We have the Georgette, the collar to protect in battle, protect the neck in battle. We have Braddock's sash, and then we have the order of the marching orders there in his pocket. You guys did a good job picking out when we originally looked at this primary document. It's been a while now. And then there's the sash itself. That is actually at Mount Vernon. Pretty interesting. All right, this is a good place for us to stop.